Guys, Matt from Ajp Pr7 here. I just today got my first ride on a Pr7 by Ajp. I want to personally thank Mark Berg, the owner of Central Powersports Distributing, for allowing me to use his own personal vehicle. Thank you very much, Mark. First things first, my initial impression was it's a very unique looking motorcycle. It's unlike anything else we have here at Ajp Pr7, and I was excited to ride it. It actually surprised me today. I've ridden 690s, 701s, a lot of adventure bikes. I have an Africa Twin myself. I was excited to ride this because it looked a lot more like a dirt bike to me. It definitely had the characteristics of more of an off-road bike than those other machines. Spent quite a bit of time on some of the other units and was excited to get on this one, so I want to give you some feedback on that. This bike handles a lot more like a dirt bike, just like it looks. It was comfortable enough on the freeway to get from here to Everett, I-5, out Highway 2. Very compliant suspension, it wasn't too stiff. My worry originally was that most bikes like this come sprung very soft, you know, so when you try and ride them aggressively, they dive in the front end, they wallow around. There's some issues. This one was surprisingly very compliant. 60, 70, 80, 85 miles an hour. I was hitting some square-edged holes and potholes and stuff out on the mountain loop, and the suspension soaked it up really, really well. Got a SOX 48 millimeter closed cartridge fork in the front that works extremely well off-road. I was very impressed with it today, and I'm very, very picky. If any of you guys know me, you know that I will sink a ton of money into a motorcycle to make it right. Brembo brakes front and rear, 300 millimeter in the front, 240 in the rear. They work fantastic. The bike is more nimble just due to its thinner design in the center here than like a 701 or a 690. It takes a lot less input, you know, body weight wise, to change direction. Heads-up display, which is a complete Samsung tablet, worked really well. It's easy to read. Works really well with glare, things like that. 4.5 gallon gas tank. It was way more than enough fuel for me to make my loop today. I only used a couple gallons of gas on the entire loop, from here all the way to Darrington, Mountain Loop, and back. I was actually pretty impressed with that. Ergonomic wise, it's set up for somebody a little shorter than me. I'm 6 foot tall, so I would definitely be adjusting my foot pegs or handlebars to kind of finish the fit for me. But out of the box, this bike really impressed me, and most motorcycles don't. I recently purchased another machine that I'm putting about $3,500 into to make it adapt to what I want it to do. And this bike, for what it's made for, ergonomics would be all I would change. I was really impressed. The engine's got a lot more bottom end and mid-range power, which is very usable in the dirt, than say a 701 or a 690, something like that. It was very tractable and very solid. One thing I was curious about was the two-piece frame. You've got an aluminum bolted together two-piece frame, which I thought might feel loose, something like that, might kind of wallow around. It's extremely solid. Didn't even twitch, not at any speed or any obstacle I rode it over. It was very impressive. I'm gonna give you guys a ride film here in a little bit, but I just wanted to hit you guys up so you can see just kind of my basic overview. But I'm gonna get you guys some film and some edited video. Thanks for watching.
All right, this is one of my favorite trails at Walker Valley, and Micaiah really loves this trail. It's been washed out so many times that all the bricks are thrown all over the place. It's really rugged. It's actually really steep. This trail is called Centennial, and had to be careful in a few spots just getting up here with the low exhaust, and take my time and kind of pick through it. But video, of course, doesn't know justice, but this is a really, really steep trail, and it just shows you how well that this bike actually hooks up and handles the terrain. You can see just by watching the dash and having it bounce around that it's actually fairly rough. Anybody that's ridden this trail, especially in the winter, knows how difficult this is, and you can see it bouncing around. The bike handled this trail extremely well. So this trail is called Short Timers. It starts off fairly easy, but will kind of surprise you. It gets really rocky and really steep. Pretty challenging terrain. Usually, if I ride this on my motocross bike, I try and... My goal is to not put my foot down, you know, but with this bigger bike, I had to touch a few times, but it handled the terrain, and it's pretty tight when you kind of get up here and start turning, and the only real drawback to this bike that I've noticed is that its turning radius is not as sharp as I would like it. You know, just part of the steering angle and stuff to make it stable at high speed. You sacrifice a little bit at lower speed, and you'll see that on some of the upcoming trails where I have to kind of reposition the bike a couple of times, just because it's steering. It doesn't turn real sharp, but the stability is amazing. It handles the rocks, doesn't twitch, and definitely doesn't need a steering damper by any means. Those of you that have ridden Walker Valley, I think every single one of you know this trail. This is Weber's Wandering, named after my old friend Scott Weber, who's passed away now. He built this trail a long time ago. Since then, they've logged it, and at the end of this, there's an amazing view. This bike had no problem on this trail. What you can't see is that it's really loose, and the ground moves beneath you a lot. It's got a lot of rock in it, and it's extremely skatey, but as you can see, the bike handles the terrain no problem, and it gets fairly rough, even though the GoPro does no justice again, but enjoy the views. trail's a fun one. It's called Tues-Fri, and at the very bottom you'll see just how sharp the turns are, but it's extremely rocky, and in the winter it's like a flowing stream. And so the bike is, it's still narrow for what it is, but as you can see, I'm trying to be careful between some of these rocks because it is wider than your normal off-road bike or motocross bike. But it's totally capable of picking its way through this. This is an extremely steep trail, and kind of down at the bottom you can see I have to reposition the bike a couple of times just to make some sharp corners. This trail is called Current Pass, and it's probably one of the roughest legal trails you can ride on at this ORV park here in Walker Valley. It gets extremely steep, and it turns into like a full-on Erzberg type section in the rocks, and you'll see that even though this bike's 350 pounds and this rock section is really rough for even your pretty good riders. Like I say again, the video doesn't do it much justice, but this is really, really rough. I would not want to take a 701 or 690 through here. The suspension just would not be able to handle it, and the clearance there's just no way. And you'll see me put my feet down in a couple spots, and that's because the bike is sitting on the skid plate. And you'll see I've got to reposition the bike here a little bit. This is a really, really rough trail, so people that know this actually kind of avoid this trail. So enjoy. side hill on it. Pretty sketchy right here, actually. If you fall to the right, it would not be good. And then it tapers down. This is a really old trail. It's about 40 years old. You can see how deep it's dug into the side of the hill. Bike handled it just fine. I did hit the skid plate a few times coming down on the left and right side, but no, bike handled it just fine. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to click like, and I appreciate it.